Hey everyone, I'm Clive,
Hey, welcome. I'm Louis.
and today we're going to talk about how to deliver project tasks on time. We're going to be really focused on the information management and the sequencing for project tasks and also model-based tasks. There's always this question at some point in the project, is the project on schedule? Louis, is the project on schedule?
Which, uh, which schedule?
Which schedule? My schedule, your schedule, the one we sent to the owner. Like what is on time? And who knows until the end. It's a very difficult thing. So who knows? Well, it would be great to know whether the project is on time. And we dug into this question with a few of our customers and found out that what it was that they were trying to solve for when they first recognized that this was a challenge. Why is it a confusing thing? Why is it difficult to find out where the project is? Well, what we found and what we hear is that there are a lot of different people's opinions. Everyone has a different tool. They end up with their own schedule. They start from scratch each time, so it never really matches the original contract, or there's interpretation. They're file-based, so they're difficult to consolidate. They're time-consuming because they have to start from scratch. And people are doing it often in a silo, but thankfully we saw some multi-company collaboration as well. And then that results in a lot of confusion. People are asking, when should I start my tasks? What are my tasks? When are my tasks due? Having a clear scope is really important, but then understanding the sequence of those tasks is incredibly important. So how can we make sure that people provide you the inputs that you need so that you can get on with your work? And having that cross-company collaboration is important.
On time.
On time, absolutely. And if we don't do this, we see out of sequence work, people stopping and starting, and that causes a lot of unproductive time, a lot of unnecessary clashes if people are maybe creating models at the same time without knowing that other systems are taking that space. And when we have unnecessary clashes, we end up in rework, so moving things to make them fit. And that obviously is waste, BIM waste there, and causes delays. So, okay, how can we improve this so that we can deliver projects on time? Well, we ask that, we continually ask that to ourselves and our development team to create a piece of software that will help us to not only scope exactly what's needed, but also help us understand the sequence and manage those tasks throughout the project. So let's look at a demo. And one of the things that we looked at there was a preview. We're going to see the timeline view inside of the scope. So the grid view for the scope, and then a timeline view showing that same scope over the contract duration. Let me switch over to Planoly, and the first thing I'm going to do is simply hit the new project and create a new project. I'm going to check just the scope because we're going to just focus on the task requirements here. And when I hit create, it shows me my new project, and I'm able to start thinking about what I need to include. One of the most important things is organization in your scope, in your grid and your timeline view. And the first way to do that is to start creating folders. So I'm going to simply add a folder in here, and then I'm going to add a name for that folder, and I'm going to call it information management tasks, typed very, very fast. And then I'm going to understand what it is. So we talked about what we need to plan for, what we need to manage. And it's not just model-based tasks on a BIM project. Both the scope and the schedule of the tasks that setting up the project are also important. So in this example, I'm going to pull out the library on the left-hand side, and I'm going to start defining things like the activities that are required for setting up my project. The first one might be, or one of the first ones might be, setting up a common data environment. It might be that we need things like, we certainly need a contract. So maybe a completely appointment documentation is important. And then if I've done this before, then I can also source this from other projects that I've worked on, or other templates. And simply by selecting that in the top and maybe going to a template project that I have worked on before, I can see that I might have other information management tasks that are important to me. And I can also see that there might be some milestones, some important milestones on the project that we've worked on before. So here I'm going to choose the project setup and the stage 3 coordination. And I'm going to, so that this matches, let me just first delete this milestone in here because we don't need the automatically created one. And I'm going to then bring in the pieces that I missed. I realized that I need to appoint an information manager. So I'm going to drop this task in here. And I'm going to also realize that I need to define my exchange information requirements. So this is why it's important to use a template to create our project requirements. And then I realize as well that I'm going to add these two tasks.
In Plannerly, any project you have is a template. So you can either make it a point to create a template that you continuously update, or you can use a project you have a previous project with this information. And as Clive showed, you have the flexibility to choose what you would like to import, such as a milestone, specifically multiple milestones, the content that's inside of these tasks, descriptions, attachments, the teams who are assigned. So there's a lot of flexibility and good in starting with the template, provides consistency. So teams are very happy to save time and provide more consistency through their projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we talked about providing these as tasks for project setup, but that's like a project management task. We also want to plan for the people's work, the disciplines, the responsibility matrix, depending on where you are in the world and how you describe this. But essentially the scope of work for the architect or the structural engineer, etc. So here we've got a set of folders that I can, again, dragging in a folder, bring in its folder structure underneath, and also all of the items as well. And you can see
Nice.
that has created us all of our tasks in the grid view.
That's a great list, but when are they due, Clive?
That's a great point. That's a great point. So if we look at this list, yeah, as Louis said, there's a long list, and it includes even down to information requirements. We need the concrete compression strength, supposedly, for this deliverable. But when are these actually due? Let me collapse them to just show the summary of those groups, and then turn to our milestones. So these milestones could be a very long duration. And right now we've got the definition of what it is, the purpose of this milestone, the outcome, which is part of the description. But if I click on that milestone, I can also add a date, and I could say, okay, well, it's important to me that this task starts today, and this milestone, apologies, starts today and finishes by the end of this month. And I hit done, and now hit the check mark, and we can see that that date is applied to that milestone. Same thing for coordination. Maybe for stage 3, this specific requirement for coordination, we're going to say is through this period of time. So we're creating a window for this milestone to be worked on and then finished by June 1st. And simply by doing that, we've added the dates. So now we've got a definition of exactly the purpose, the title for this milestone, and also when it should generally be required. So that's all good.
Now what?
Now what? Yeah.
Yeah, we've got this great list, and typically we might have to jump into another platform to create a schedule.
Yep, absolutely. So I'm going to realize that I hadn't assigned these guys. So I'm going to, usually at this point, as you said, yeah, we would start afresh, wouldn't we? We would go to a scheduling tool and we would say, okay, let's say we've got to do something. When is it that we've got to do these things, and what are the things that we need to do? And we'd start from scratch.
So we need to copy the list and make sure it's exactly to our contract.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. So instead of doing that, what happens if we had it all in the same application that actually you have also contracted for? So if you weren't here for the other webinars, you'll have seen some parts of this where we went through progressing the status of these tasks to get approval, and then also creating a PDF that combined with the BIM execution plan to create a contract. And in this episode, we're talking about the timeline. So let's take a look at how we go from the grid view directly to the timeline view. And instantly, we are provided a nice view showing not just the list of tasks on the left-hand side, but also a grid of these as a set of requirements. And I realized that I've not indented these to show that they are part of this summary. So that's why I wasn't seeing a summary bar. So I can just drag these from the left to the just indent them so now they're part of that folder. Yeah.
Was that on purpose to show that
to show,
it's the same list, or I don't know?
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
So your changes in here happen in your schedule as well, huh? Okay.
Yeah, this is just great demo technique, Louis. Yeah, just so when we go to the timeline view now, you can see that this is a summary task, the folder level, and we've got the tasks for each of the activities, the events underneath. And really importantly, we haven't had to do anything. So the first thing that we're going to start doing in our timeline view is to say when these tasks are going to occur. I could simply take a task and drag it, say we're not going to start this one until here. And what you'll notice is a couple of things. Obviously, the summary bar updates, but also this task now takes a color, the full color, the same color as the team.
It's now assigned.
Yep, it's now assigned specific dates. And if we then wanted to say after appointing information manager, if it's going to take us a period of time, we can then drag from the end of this task and represent when that next task is going to start. And the same thing occurs. We start to see this progression of tasks. And as we are going through this workflow, we start to see the duration of the project evolving. Obviously, these could be shorter or longer durations and make an impact on their subsequent tasks. And that's all well and great, but it's not just, we talked about collaborative scheduling. It's not just about how I would create a schedule and mandate it on others. It is really about involving the teams that know best. And that's how we start to get better results, because I would then have the input from others. So I'm going to jump back all the way to the project dashboard over on the top. And I'm going to look at, automatically these teams were created when the schedule was updated. And I'm going to create a team member inside of our lead appointed party, which is actually assigned some of the architectural work. So I'm going to find Louis. I'm going to give Louis manager permissions because I know that he is actually a manager on the account as well. And by checking the box, I've now assigned Louis to this team. So Louis will get an invite, he'll get an email, and he will be able to join us in this project live. And while he's doing that, let me jump back to the scope and we'll take a look at maybe adding something else in here. Oh, maybe I can assign Louis some tasks. So not only is it part of his team, but maybe I could say Louis is fully responsible for this task here. You can see his face goes on the task and also this task here. And maybe at that point in time, I can start to see Louis jumping in and helping out. And maybe I could be responsible for these tasks here. I can see Louis moving this in the background, which is great. And I'm responsible for this task as well. And you can see here is a checklist of items, a whole bunch of other things in webinars that we've covered, but everything, all the activity that goes on the task, what the milestone is, what the dates are, what the status of that task is, etc. The description of it, everything that you would need to manage that task and understand it more as well. So as Louis is adding durations to his bars, his tasks, what we can do is not just see that it's a task I have got to appoint the information manager as an example. It's actually a lot more than that, because Louis has got in here the definition of what he needs to do, and not just that he has to one sentence of what it is. It could be including a checklist. It could be including a video description of how he does it as well. There's a lot more.
I left you a comment on an action that I need from you.
I see. Okay, so I can see here that Louis says that he needs something. He mentioned me on a comment on here, and I can see that he says we need contract documents to start this. Okay, very true, very true. So maybe I replied to him, and he sent that, and I'm okay. So he needs contract documents before he gets this. So where are the contract documents? Here. These are the contract documents. I can't get him the contract documents until after we have set up. Maybe it's not set up, but maybe we've got to have the appointment of the. Let's appoint, and then let's say that after we have define the exchange information requirements, we're then going to set up the contract. And at this point, I'm going to say now we are able to have him start. However, this task is not going to be a 5-day task. It's going to be a 20-day task. So instantly we can start to identify this and work together to get a much more collaborative, much better outcome, much more likely to be achieved schedule, program. timeline. So what we've shown you in here is the grid view to see the tasks as we are creating the requirements that then get contracted, and then the timeline view, which is a simple way of describing the interrelation between teams, seeing which teams are responsible for what, and also being able to see when. Yeah, the same list, exactly the same. What's the power that comes from that is not only it's quicker to get to an outcome, but also when we want to summarize, maybe it's easier for me if I collapse everything. Now I can see an overview of the whole project, and I can see where each team's tasks are, for example, very, very quickly. And then maybe let's, I like the collapsed view as well in here. So maybe we want to show the compact view as well. We can start to see more tasks on the same page. So there are different ways of viewing this content.
Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility in here, and you want to show some of the filters. Mm-hmm. The filter has a lot of power in a sense that you can choose exactly what type of schedule you want to see, right? Whether it's by, I don't know, a milestone, right? Maybe you want to choose
so you just
3D coordination milestone.
Yep.
So now you can see your 3D timeline.
I just want to see your tasks, for example.
Yep. Your team tasks. Yep.
Yep. What status they are, etc. So now in one place, you can review just one team, even one team members, if you wanted to, and then this can become part of their contract as well. So as you think about how you're creating these scopes, it's a management task list, it's a modeling task list. It's by team, it's by milestone, it's by stage, it's by phase, it's by understanding, and there's a lot of interdependencies and a lot of handoffs that are important to be managed. And hence why Louis mentioned me to say, hey, I need to have something before I can do this and deliver it. And that becomes a dependency between those that drives the timeline.
Yeah, you don't have to set up different schedules. It's just taking the filters to present it to a client, to your team, or filtering to your specific tasks that you need to focus on.
Absolutely. So that was a bit of a demonstration showing the ability to have a grid and a timeline view of the same set of data and be collaborative. So helping people that it's not their day job to understand exactly what the details are and what sequence of tasks are, but inviting those team members into the project and giving them permission to be able to help to set up that project timeline. A few bonus tips before we leave you. There are lots of things that you need to cover. Here we've got 10 really good questions to start thinking about and making sure that we've got answers to. So if an action that comes from this is to take this list away, we'll share it afterwards in an email, but to take this list away and ask some of your teams and see whether we have good answers for these questions. So the first one is, do you create a BIM schedule or a information management schedule? Do you combine them? Do you set deadlines for model submissions? Do you have it per team, per location? Do you manage those tasks? How often is the update provided? And actually next week, next webinar, we will be talking about how to update and how to keep on top of your QA tasks. So don't miss that one. And what does the process look like for coordination? Is it a proactive coordination process where people understand what models and elements are going to be modeled in what sequence and when teams should start? How do you know when you should start? What element priority or system priority do you have set up? And are you using any lean methodologies to identify what the waste is potentially in that workflow and hopefully do more clash avoidance rather than clash detection? How do you have teams that share their progress? How do you know the status of what's happening? How are models submitted for approval? And when are they uploaded? How are people notified? What administrative tasks would your teams like to optimize to take away the grunt work and put more time on the productive work? And then identifying what the biggest waste is in the BIM workflow today. What are the tasks that are providing the most waste? What are those that you can actively attack and make leaner? So there's a few questions to think about, and we love talking around the answers. If you've got some thoughts, pop them in the chat or send us an email, and we would love to chat more about these with you. So today we have talked about how to deliver project tasks on time, and we've looked at first of all, the primary thing that we should do is identify the customer. So understand what the milestone is, what the purpose is, who is the customer for that milestone, setting the deliverables, setting the list of tasks that need to be delivered overall on the whole project as a consolidated list, having a set of information management tasks, and also collaborate with teams that are doing their own scheduling. So instead of just sending somebody a list, actually getting them into the project and getting their input on the sequencing, the durations, and making sure that it's achievable. And going through the coordination and agreement process. So we talked about that actually a lot last webinar. So recap on that. And Louis, I think you can share the link to those so that everyone's got that link to the page. And the last one was the bonus tips, the one about what to ask. How can we find out whether we have the most optimal workflows in place, and what can we do about it if we do not? We've got a really exciting course that you can sign up for. There's a link there. Maybe Louis, you've got the link for this one as well. The BIM Basics, the professional and expert following the ISO 19650 workflow. This is a certified course that you'll get different staged badges that you can then share as well. It's really well structured. There's a lot of focus on how to use Planoly to make sure that you can achieve these things. And a quick advert for the next one, which is episode 5, how to simplify project updates and the QA process. So we'll be looking at how updating models and managing the status of tasks and checking for compliance is really, really important.